body. Dorit, can I ask you to pray? There's a microphone up there someplace.
Most beloved Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this day, Father. And thank you so much for sharing your truth, your heart with us, Father. We're so grateful to be alive at this time, and we're so sorry we still don't understand so much, and we still don't know how to really convey it to many people. Like our true Mother Kang, she witnessed to so many people and brought so many people to the true parents, to the blessing. And I pray we can really study deeply so we can share more, we can understand your truth, we can live it, and we can share it with others, Father. Please speak through Tim, and we're really grateful, Father, for these lectures. Please speak through Tim and guide us, and we can work out together more deeply to understand your truth and more deeply how to live your truth, Father. And I report this in Denton and Doris Smith's name, a blessed central family. Adieu.
Seat. Let's see. So we're talking about, actually we're still in the section on God of night and God of day. And so when human ancestors, Adam and Eve, complete and perfect their portion of responsibility, they would have brought perfect completion to the invisible and formless God. So this is a concept also that may be revolutionary to Christians, traditional Christians, that that human beings bring completion to God, and that God is not complete without human beings becoming His perfect object partners. But just as, well, maybe not just as, but similar to how parents are only parents if they have children, right? And so also God, without His creation, is not complete, is what Father is saying here. Only at that time would the God of night and God of day have fully become the original Lord of creation, Hananim, as the unified original body. So only when Adam and Eve complete their portion of responsibility, they bring completion to God, and it's only then that we have God as Lord of creation, Hananim. So to have Jesus on the earth, and then also then for Jesus to come again and then to become the true parent, then is bringing completion to God. Only at that time would He have become the King of Kings, both in heaven and on earth, and as the true parent become the eternal true ancestor of humankind. Thus, when human beings, who are the central beings of the cosmos, reach completion, only from that point does God reach completion, and only from that point does the created cosmos reach completion as well. So that's the responsibility, and that's the importance of the position of Adam and Eve. Unfortunately, during their growing period, Adam and Eve were seduced by the lies of Satan and fell through the misuse of sex. Well, fell through illicit sexual relationships there. Adam and Eve failed to become the perfected, substantial, true parents of a unified body and mind, and instead became false parents with mind and body in conflict as owners of a false lineage. As a result, the God of night and God of day came into conflict, and God Himself was unable to become the King of Kings in the spirit and physical worlds. God Himself was unable to stand in the position of the true parent of humankind, the owner of the true lineage, and the owner of the true peace. So the vision that the ideal of creation that God has for human beings and for the cosmos is a tremendously joyful and one of a really incredible when you think that we are to be His perfect objects of love, and that's a tremendous blessing that He gives us. But on the other hand, when that goes wrong, then it's just as bad then. Because now God has been an imprisoned God and has been cut off from his creation for all intents and purposes for the past 6,000 years. And it's through the true parents, that this is resolved. And so that is why God must be so very joyful to have true parents. But it was very difficult for him to meet true parents. In other words, to meet means that for him to come into contact with true parents, or to come to the point where true parents could exist on this earth. And it's a tough course, and that's why it's not surprising that the first woman who was chosen to walk the course of the true mother was not able to complete that course. This is Mrs. Che. She was not able to walk it, and then Mrs. Lee or Kim, Mrs. Kim was also not able to complete, and then Mrs. Han was also not able to complete. But finally, our true mother Hyunshir Kang was able to complete that course, and that was the importance of 9/23/2017. Or on the heavenly calendar, the 8th year of the heavenly calendar, 8th month and 4th day. And that's why we celebrate that day as Foundation Day. For the first time in history then, for the first time since God's creation of the world, you had the position of Adam and Eve fulfilled. Not the original two human beings, not the two original individuals. They're still, they're at the end of the line. They've got a lot of stuff to make up for it after causing all this mess. But their mistake has been indemnified, and their mistake has been corrected. But that doesn't mean that they're going to be at the head of the line at all. After the fall, as I pointed out on Saturday, God, clothed them and expressed his love toward them in Genesis 3:21. But what happened, and they were no longer capable of being in that position. So now, True Father Sun Myung-moon and True Father Hyunshir Kang are in the position where Adam and Eve were intended to be 6,000 years ago. But the important thing is that now someone is in that position, and that never happened before. It would have happened 2,000 years ago if Jesus could have been married, if he had been able to take a wife and been able to remain on earth long enough to educate and train her. Then it could have happened 2,000 years ago, but for various reasons that didn't happen then, but now it has happened. And so now you can say, the true human history has finally reached the starting point. We're at the starting line as of September 23rd, 2017. I don't think we really understand the incredible significance that date has. But we'll be talking about that. It's celebrated by the heavenly calendar. Father always celebrated it by the heavenly calendar. He always uses the heavenly calendar. So it's the 8th month and 4th day. This year that falls on September 10th. And so that's what the holy day on September 10th this year will be about. But the world changed on that day. The world changed. And a new world really began on that day. In a small way, yeah, because God begins with a point. From there it expands. From the individual to the couple to the family to the tribe to the ethnic group to the nation to the world and to the cosmos. He expands. So now it's just a matter of time. Just a matter of time. So let's stick around to watch it develop. Stick around. Eat your vegetables and take your vitamin D. Let's stick around to watch it all unfold. It's going to be very exciting. Okay, so unfortunately, Adam and Eve, yes. But therefore, when the Messiah, the Lord of the second advent, and the Savior and true parent comes and fulfills the mission of the true parent, the God of night, God of day, will be unified and become the King of kings on earth and in heaven. And so in the last months, weeks of his, in his physical body, Father was saying that the God of night, God of day are still fighting. Yesterday, Richard Panzer quoted from Father's speech on July 16th of 2012, and I was there. And that was really the final speech that he gave to a mass audience, to an audience of thousands. That was in the World Peace Center or the Peace World Center, I guess they call it, in Chongpyeong. It's an indoor auditorium that holds, how many did that hold? 10,000? Something like that. A lot of people anyway, and it was full. And he was reading this speech, and then he interjected this comment during the speech that Reverend Moon has no wife. What? What do you mean? Who's that sitting next to you? He said, no, Reverend Moon has no wife. I didn't understand what that meant then, because I didn't realize that there was all this conflict going on in the background, because Father always, and also the second king and Kukjinim also, were always trying to preserve Mother's authority, Hak Ja Han's authority, and the authority of the true Mother, so that when she repented, she would have that, she would be able to exercise that position. So they kept all this conflict in the background in the hope and in the belief that she would repent before she finally fell off the cliff. But unfortunately, that did not happen, especially really the decisive moment was in February of 2013, when she took the power for herself. So anyway, so when he becomes the true parent and be unified, and we'll be talking about, what happened in 2010, what happened in 2003, and so forth. Later on, okay? Adam and Eve became false parents through the fall in a manner opposite to God's ideal of creation, built a fallen world through the vertical and horizontal 8 stages in both the spirit world and the physical world. So here we have, okay, we'll be, that's sort of throwing that out there right now, but horizontally, we have the individual, we have the individual family, tribe. 4 is the ethnic group. 5 is the nation. 6 is the world. 7 is cosmos, and 8 is God. So those are the horizontal 8 stages. And vertically we have, let's see if I can list them all. Servant of servants, like I said, originally the angels were to be the servants of Adam and Eve, but instead Adam and Eve became servants of those servants. So the restoration begins from the position of the servant of servants, and the servants, then the which comes first? Adopted son?
I think it's adopted.
Pardon?
Isn't adopted?
Adopted son is third, okay. And then the son of the concubine. Son of the concubine means that has the father's lineage but not the mother's lineage. You call it stepson? Yeah, I think that's kind of a euphemism that maybe, I think when I came back to U.S. in 1997, I was translating for Dr. Young in his speech, and he went through this, and he talked about the son of the concubine, and Dan Pfefferman and other old members said, "What? We never heard this before." So, because the Korean, you see, they had this concept that Western people were not going to be able to understand this all. And so things like the son of a concubine, whoa, let's not tell that to the Western members, they're going to freak out if we tell them that. Okay, yeah, well, some people do freak out, but, God creating himself, that's kind of freaking out as well. We've got other things to freak out on now. But yeah, the son of the concubine, which was stepson, was that the euphemism that was used? But no, it's the son of the concubine because it has the father's lineage, but not the mother's lineage. It has half the lineage. And then the direct son, adopted son of concubine, and then direct son. And then the next step, I think, is the mother, and then the father, I believe. I don't know if that makes for 8. Anyway, we'll get to that later on, okay? Just that these stages were, the important thing here is that these stages were established by Satan after the fall. And so now, one thing that the Father did during his lifetime was that he went through and got rid of all this kind of nonsense. Therefore, true parent must come and, having discovered the principle of law and of the indemnity, restore through indemnity on earth the 8 vertical and horizontal stages put in place by the false parent, by bringing restoration through indemnity to completion, conclusion, and finalization. The true parent seeks and establishes the kingship of God for the first time in 6,000 years, thus bringing about full completion and the realm of liberation and realm of complete freedom of God, the King of Kings. In this way, the true parent carries out the coronation of the realm of liberation of Hananim, the King of Kings. When Father was 15 years old, 16 by the Korean counting, he pledged that he would liberate God and liberate humanity, because God, he realized, has been imprisoned throughout time, since the fall of Adam and Eve, because Satan, by taking the pinnacle of God's creation, he took everything. He took everything under that. And true Father concluded, and finalized the mission of the true parent while he was on earth, while he was in his physical body, and became the true parent of heaven, earth, and humanity, the cosmic King of peace, and the owner of lineage. Okay. All right. Any questions or comments about this before we go on to another topic? Yes, Carrie.
In slide 106, when it says the original Sung-Sung, which is what we can say is God's mind, is the God of night, and original Hyung-Sung, which can be said to be God's body, is the God of day. Could you help us understand the connection between that and when Father said the God of night and the God of day are still fighting?
So, that I think is clear if you look ahead, where it says that here in 109, when human beings unify their mind and body and become a unified couple as men and women, the God of night and the God of day become one, and God, who is the original substance of the principle, becomes unified and completed himself. Because then when the Adam and Eve are united, then the God of night is able to reside in there, and then Adam, who comes from the God of night, and we'll be talking about that kind of ontology later. Adam or Christ. Adam originally, then the God of day, sort of Eve, is sort of the pinnacle of that of creation, isn't she? Because the Adam is from Godhead or the God of night, and they become one. But then when the fall occurred, then there was from that point there was always conflict and struggle, because now human beings are selfish, and with selfishness, with pride and with greed and with all this things, and failing to love each other from God's point of view, and spreading sin in order to justify ourselves. There's always conflict then between the couples and within the families. So there's always fighting between the God of night and God of day. And so it was his lamentation that even towards the end of his time in his physical body, the God of night and God of day were still fighting.
No,
Does that help?
Yeah, some. One thing that I'm trying to understand more deeply is the relationship between the two sets of dual characteristics, because we understand that Sung-Sung and Hyung-Sung are the primary dual characteristics, and yang and yin are the secondary set of dual characteristics, but it almost seems like there's an Father saying the God of night and the God of day are fighting. That I believe he's referring to himself as coming from the God of day, and I'm sorry, my bad, the God of night, and then the mother position coming from the God of day. But it seems there like Seungsang and Hyungsang is being, there's an equal sign. There's an equal sign between the two sets of dual characteristics, and that's what I'm trying to understand more deeply.
I'm not sure I understand your question. How is there an equal sign?
Well, because it says here that God's mind is the God of night, and God's body is the God of day. So now, Father's saying he's in the position, if I understand this correctly, he himself is in the position of God's mind, and his wife is in the position of God's body. So now it's not just yang and yin, because Father is masculine and Mother is feminine, but it's also Father is Seungsang and Mother is Hyungsang. That's so understanding the relationship between the two sets of dual characteristics gets a little fuzzy for me. Is that question clear?
Clarifies a little bit for me, yes. But that's an interesting question. Yes, that's an interesting question.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't have all these. I'll bet Reverend Yu has been through these books several times.
Please understand, I'm not trying to challenge you or whatever.
Thank you, but I have not been through them even once.
Yeah, I just wanted. These are things I've been thinking about, and I'm trying to understand more deeply, and I have tremendous respect for your insight. So that's why I'm asking.
You. I'm sorry that I cannot meet your expectations.
Well, no, it makes me feel a little bit better.
Someone near and dear to me said that Carrie would be the next OSDP lecturer. I agree. All right, shall we go on? So the fundamental law and axis of the universe. And this is an important one, isn't it? Because what is the axis of the universe? Father-son relationship. Okay, it's not husband-wife, it's father-son. The fundamental axis of the cosmos is not the law of the father-daughter, the law of the mother-son, or the law of the mother-daughter. So why is it the father-son axis? Because the son is the heir to the father's seed. And as the Father God is the first generation in Adam, as the Son is the second generation, the first and second generations are created by God. But the third, let's see here, but the third and fourth generations are multiplied horizontally through women. The first and second generations are a vertical father-son lineage relationship, and in the third and fourth generations, the vertical father-son lineage are multiplied through Adam, centering on true love horizontally via Eve. This is the perfect completion of God's ideal of creation, namely the three great blessings. Okay. So, this explains a number of things, including the reason why Father could not raise his own children. But the second king is able to raise his children, because the first and God is the first generation, Adam is the second generation, and then the first and second generations are created by God, but the third and fourth are multiplied horizontally through women. So God entrusted the archangel to raise his children, and also Father also entrusted the people in the archangel position to raise his children. And that was a very complicated situation and didn't work out in most situations, but praise be to God, it did work out in two situations. Adam is God's son, and at the same time is also God's body. Okay? Eve is God's daughter, and at the same time is the wife of Adam, but Adam is God's body, so in that sense then Eve is also the wife of God, becomes the wife of God then. God meets true love through men, and God comes to possess true love through women. Adam, who has become one with God, is the one who carries God's seed of true love, and for this reason Adam is the subject partner. Eve, who is the object partner, receives the seed of God's true love through Adam and multiplies God's sons and daughters. So it's important to have, lots of sons and daughters. We hope. 2 Kings said at least 5 per family among his 5 children. We'll see how that goes. But God will determine that. A man has the seed, a woman does not. The seed in man's sperm includes 2 types: seeds that can become a son and seeds that become a daughter. And then, and I know medical people will say, wait a second, no, it's always 50-50, but I hope that they can understand that we're talking about a spiritual situation here. I know they say, it's each contributes the same number of chromosomes and so forth. It's absolutely 50-50, but we're talking about a spiritual lineage and heritage here. Some children will resemble the son will resemble the mother, for example, because they inherit more of the mother's physical traits. But still, the spiritual lineage, though, is still going through the son. In order for the sperm seed of true love to meet with the ovum, which is the body of the life of true love, the two must come together at one place through the power of true love. Now, this one point, is the place where the vertical and horizontal 3 existences must be met. And thus, that is the vertical original substance of true love. God must meet with the horizontal Adam and Eve, centering on God's true love. So we're talking here about vertical God, right? God is vertical. Adam and Eve are then horizontal because God works in a point, in a vertical axis and a point. And this vertical axis is the Father-Son axis. But then Adam and Eve then is a horizontal. So Eve is the first expansion of that point horizontally. Without that expansion, there is no plane, there is no space. It's just a line. But then finally, horizontally, then you get the expansion, and you get you can have a plane or a space. The place where this happens is the reproductive organs of the man and the woman. So the reproductive organs is where God's love and human love meet. And so, Father, perhaps in the next slide, will say that when a man and woman, when a young man and young woman get married, and they have their first night together, the marriage is consummated, they have sexual relations there, God is present in that. And God is present in that sexual relationship. This is the most holy of all occurrences. Accordingly, the reproductive organs is the most precious part of the human body and are the most precious place in the entire cosmos. Centering on the reproductive organs, God, Adam, and Eve become one body in true love, true life, and true lineage through the sexual act in the monogamous heterosexual marriage relationship. And that's why it is so important for people to maintain the purity of their sexual organs before marriage, and then maintain fidelity within the marriage, because this is the most pure, most holy place in the cosmos, where God and Adam and Eve, God and husband and wife, come together. The important thing here is lineage, a bloodline, 혈통 in Korean. In Korean, we do not say love line or lifeline. Instead, we say bloodline. Yeah. Lineage bears fruit through the reproductive organs of men and women, centering on God. This is why God gave ownership over the sexual organ to the partner. Adam is the one who has Adam's sexual organ, but it does not belong to Adam. Rather, it belongs to Eve, his counterpart, his partner. And Eve has her sexual organ, but her sexual organ does not belong to her. It belongs to Adam. We have each other's owners. We are owners of each other's sexual organs. Scott, you want to ask a question?
I'd like to make a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Two terms I struggled with in the past, of course, was value. You hear so much about value, you know. They don't even spell it right in the mercantile world. But the main word that I struggled with was true. I went to the dictionary. It didn't satisfy me. And so through prayer and consternation, I came up with a definition of true that makes sense to me. And I just share it with you and get your feedback or not. True means according to God's original standard. That makes sense to me. I'll share it with you.
Thank you. I think that's a good definition. You know, basically in the world we have things that are true and things that are false. That which is true comes from God. That which is false does not. But like you said, what God's original standard, right? Yeah, that would be correct. Yeah. Yeah. I think, in my opinion, okay. Through prayer, you can ask Father whether you are right or not. So don't take my word for it. But it sounds pretty good to me. Yes. Again, I saw you take the microphone. Did you want to? No. Okay. Okay. And then I wanted to say something, and I've forgotten what it was. Okay, it'll come. Because one's counterpart or partner is the owner of one's sexual organ, which are so precious, this makes your counterpart the most precious being in the whole cosmos. Because of this, human beings are central to the cosmos. And accordingly, when a man and woman become complete, the cosmos itself is complete. And the creator of the cosmos, God, becomes the owner of the cosmos from that point forward. Yeah. So this relates to why divorce is such a tragic thing. And especially like we have today, where people basically, engage in serial polygamy and serial polyandry, where a man may be married several times during his life, or a woman may be married several times during her life. But that's completely false. You're talking about true and false, but that is something that is false. And that's not marriage at all in God's point of view, because marriage, when we are married, then we are completing the cosmos. So then when we divorce, then if someone divorces, not we don't divorce, but when someone divorces, then they are ripping the cosmos apart. They're ripping God apart. And so Father does allow some rare exceptions, but let's keep those rare, really rare. Where there is no other way to move the providence forward, then there are exceptions to the rule. But just because there are exceptions does not mean that they do not cause that same amount of harm to God's ideal. Horizontally speaking, Adam and Eve are the owners of their counterparts' sexual organs. The vertical owner, though, of the sexual organs is God, the original substance of true love. Yeah. So my sexual organs belong to my wife, but more than that, they belong to God. So if we have that kind of understanding, then that solves a lot of problems in this world. It is critical to correctly establish an absolute sex, true love, absolute value system centering on the reproductive organs. When such an absolute value system is established, the most basic and fundamental problems in the real world will be resolved, and the ideal world of God's creation, the world of peace, unity, and happiness, will be realized. So Eve basically did not treat her sexual organ as belonging to Adam, and did not treat it as belonging to God. But God said, don't eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and we'll see in chapter 2 that actually the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil is actually Eve's love or Eve's sexual organ. So that was to remain pure until God gave the permission for Adam and Eve to have sexual relationships with each other. In other words, to bless them in marriage. And that would have happened if she had not committed that sin and fallen with the archangel. If Adam and Eve had achieved completion by fully maintaining absolute sex in the Garden of Eden, as per God's commandment not to eat of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, at that time, God would have taught them who the owner of their sexual organ was. The granting of eternal permission to the owner of their partner's sexual organ is God's eternal blessing, and through this, Adam and Eve would come to realize that, vertically speaking, the true owner of their sexual organ is the indivisible, original substance of God. At that time, the one place where God and Adam and Eve all come together would be the reproductive organs of Adam and Eve. That one place is what we call marriage. So when parents talk to their children about the birds and the bees, give them the sex education, this is the kind of education that children need to have. Why should I wait? Why should I wait? Well, because your sexual organ doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the person that the man or woman, depending on which sex you are, who you will meet in the future, who will be your eternal spouse, but even more than that, your sexual organ belongs to God. It's the most holy place in the cosmos. It's what brings God and His creation together. If young people can understand that is the nature of their sexual organ, then they will not abuse it as they do so often today. And you can understand then how sorrowful it is for God to see this kind of thing happening day in and day out across the world. And accordingly, the marriage of Adam and Eve is God's marriage. The first love experience, in other words, the first night after the marriage of Adam and Eve, is God's first love experience. The sons and daughters of Adam and Eve would be God's sons and daughters. At that time, Eve's sexual organ receives the seed of God, of God's true love through Adam, and becomes the palace of true love, the palace of true life, palace of true lineage. That's why in Korean we call the womb the chagung. Chagung literally means the child's palace, it says here, but actually it's son's palace. The womb becomes the palace in which the princes and princesses grow up. The man's sexual organ is the organ for planting the seed of the sperm of God's true love. Thus, both a man and a woman must maintain absolute sex purity prior to getting married. In addition, they must also preserve absolute sex purity and fidelity after getting married. You can have all the sex you want, as long as you only have one sexual partner during your life. So that was God's ideal. And I know, a lot of people have not been able to live that way, but now that we know God's word, then from this time, then let's live that way, so that we can actualize God's word in our own lives. So then, in conclusion, what kind of being is God? Number one, God is the absolute being, Hananim, the honored one, right? The original substance of principle, or ponche, of the principle, 원리본체. As a self-existing being, God is also an absolute, unique, unchanging, and eternal being. And this phrase, these four words are very important: absolute, unique, and actually, I think it's actually eternal and unchanging. Father sometimes changes it, but absolute, unique, unchanging, and eternal here anyway. The original substance of principle is the harmonious subject partner that exists as the original substance of energy. Whenever we see original substance, we're talking about the ponche. In other words, I explained at the very beginning that the ponche of principle, so that God is the original substance of principle. He's the original substance of that. So I explained at the beginning how 본체론 actually can be translated as ontology, but then we want to be able to say that he's original substance of various things, and so that's why we are keeping that translation of original substance. Is the harmonious subject partner that exists as the original substance of energy and as the harmonious unified being of the dual characteristics, original Sengsang, original Hyeongsang. God is the unique being of oneness, the true Heavenly Father. So we talk about dual characteristics, we talk about logos and give and receive and within God and everything like that, but it's all one unified being. There are no lines, even dotted lines within God. But for our own understanding, we draw these charts of God and we put these lines and we put these arrows and so forth. But it's a one unified being. So we cannot take part of God and say, okay, well, act as though that is somehow separate from the rest of God. God is the original substance of the principle, right? The 원리본체, is the original substance of 심정, true love, and true character. He's the original substance of principle, law, and order. So all these things come from him. We have 심정. We have this irrepressible impulse to invest love in an object partner so as to receive joy and love and joy. That 심정 that we have comes from God, whether it's the 심정 of the child, the 심정 of the sibling, 심정 of the parent, or of the husband and wife, or of the parent. But we need to grow that 심정 within us so that more and more we are resembling God's 심정 as we go through life and go through the stages of being the child and the sibling and the husband or wife, and then being the parent. And the intention is that we go through that process, we complete that process in the physical world, because we need a physical body in order to do that. Many people have gone to the spirit world without being able to do that, obviously. But in spirit world, you can't do that. So they need a physical body. They need to do that through us. And that's why a spirit world and a physical world, we need each other. They need us, we need them. So, complete the four realms of 심정 and build the kingdom of heaven on earth, in your family, and in your tribe, and in your nation, and then go to spirit world, and automatically then living in heaven in spirit world. So the important thing about heaven is not some place that people go to. It's a place that we build. A lot of people want to live in heaven, Father said, but not so many people who are willing to build it, to do the heavy lifting, to build the kingdom of heaven. Yes. They want someone else to do it for them. They want God to do it for them. But it's our portion of responsibility. But at the end of that path, of completing our portion of responsibility, is this tremendous relationship that is waiting for us, where we are the perfect objects of God, and He inherits all of His creation to us. So there's a huge vision waiting for us at the end of that difficult path. The most essential attributes of God are 심정 and true love. True love is that which invests and forgets and invests again for the sake of the other. And Father, I think, gave the example, when the parents, we invest a lot of, well, for one thing, money into our children, right? But we don't expect to get paid back. So, maybe some do, but not those who are, godly parents. But so we invest and we invest and we invest, and we forget that investment. We don't expect to get it back. We don't expect to be rewarded for it, but just we want to invest. That's 심정. This is the irrepressible impulse. We want to invest love, and we experience love and joy in that investment. So we continue to invest, even if we are getting nothing back. So for fallen human beings, for sinful human beings, that's a difficult process, because we want to We want to get something back from them. Oh, I gave you all this stuff, throughout your life, but you're not. That is not the way that a parent or anyone else would speak in God's original ideal. So true love is that which invests and forgets, and then invests again for the sake of the other. True love is the same as the sense of longing experienced in the very marrow of 심정. Father would say that if you're living with someone for 10, 20, 30, 50 years, but you even after seeing them every day for 50 years, you still miss them when you are not together. That's what love is, true love is. God, the original substance or principle, exists as a positional being through the relationship of subject partner and object partner. It's important to understand that God is a relational being. That's why human beings are also relational beings. We exist in relationships to others. And those who are not able to have relationships are in a bad way. That's why, in prison, solitary confinement is considered a very inhumane form of punishment, because it denies a person of those relationships. God is relational, and the human beings that he created are also relational. And continuing on what kind of being is God, his original substance, the principle, is the absolute sex, original substance of true love, true life, and true lineage. So between love, life, and lineage, which is the most important? Lineage. Yes, lineage, yeah. You remember Father asking that question in his speeches? And the people in front would say, love, 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 love. He said, no, it's lineage. Yes, Carrie.
Am I correct that in the earlier days, Father seemed to talk about, I remember him talking about what's more important in life or love. I don't remember him speaking so much about lineage in the early days in Belvedere.
Yeah, I think that's right. And he began speaking about, began speaking about concave and convex. And some people were, what? And some of the senior Korean leaders were turning red with embarrassment. And then eventually he became more clear on that. And he was talking about the sexual organs and things like that. And, but he waited until a certain time. And as he said, especially in the 1950s, he was in enough trouble as it is. In the 1955, when he was put in prison, ostensibly, officially, he was put in prison, or he was arrested for suspected of draft dodging. I read the actual court documents on this in Korea, and he was, but he was later able to prove that. Well, I was kind of in a North Korean prison camp, so couldn't exactly report to the army, and so he was found innocent of that. But the media played it up as a sexual scandal because a lot of, especially a lot of women from the Ewha Women's University, which is where all the rich elite were sending their daughters at that time. A lot of those young women were joining the Unification Church, and there were all sorts of, from today's perspective, incredible outright lies being spread. For example, that, in the Unification Church they have magnets in the floors so that once you sit down there, you can't get up. There's an actual printed word in the newspapers at that time. So this whole thing of accusing Father of having sexual relations, all sorts of things, and he was even that was the sort of the media firestorm, although it was not the official charge that he was given. So if he had talked then about lineage and about sexual organs and about Adam and Eve and God and having sex together and this kind of thing, it would have been worse, much worse. And in 1955, he only spent 3 months in prison, from July 4th to October 4th. And he was eventually released because they finally, the judge ruled that he was innocent of the draft dodging charge. So he waited until let's say we, or by we I mean the world at large, could receive that kind of message without going too crazy over it. We went a little bit crazy, but not so crazy as would have happened in the 50s, Scott.
Yeah. Going down this rabbit hole, in the summer of 1977, Mad Magazine did a spread about us. And to represent this topic that we're talking about, supposedly the too many girlfriends for father, they had fathers and then many pictures of girls in the background. I have that issue, of course.
Yeah, and this was spread very much by the established Christian churches in Korea, and first in Korea, and then when Father started working overseas, then they also moved that kind of accusation overseas as well. So that's probably where Mad Magazine got it from. Yeah. But it was in the New York Daily News, especially Daily News. Spent a lot of money investigating us, things like that. Having people sort of come in and do pretend to be members and then go out and write about it and stuff like that. Yeah, they put a lot of effort into trying to destroy Father's mission. Yeah, and also about that. But we're still here. Yep. Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Shall we continue? Okay. Okay, so the sons and daughters of God must preserve absolute sex without fail for the sake of families, of absolute sex, absolute purity, pure lineage, and chastity. Purity and chastity must be seen as absolute, unequivocal values. And praise God that is happening. I see that even in the news, I see that teenage births are going down or something like that. Premarital births are going down in the world at large. Part of that is because girls don't want to have babies. That's that's not so good. But it does seem that people are kind of maybe coming in line little by little with God's desire in that sense. When human beings made in the image of the original substance of principle, in other words, made in the image of God, reflect in division the dual characteristics that are an attribute of God, those attributes appear as man and woman. When we say division, God, he is the unified being. But in projecting himself into the world, he projects himself as men and women. And that is the division that we're talking about. So the man possesses the seed of love, of true love, that has the 심정 of the absolute sex sperm of God. Women possess the body of the life of true love that has the 심정 of the absolute sex ovum of God. And so the God, who is the original substance of principle, is the original substance of the personality of intellect, emotion, and will, and truth, beauty, and goodness, centering on 심정, as we showed in that diagram before. God, who is the original substance of principle, also has a growing period and a portion of responsibility to fulfill. So God, who is the original substance principle, is the owner of conscience and the owner of life. And Adam and Eve were embraced and raised by the God of night. Jesus, who came as the second Adam, was also embraced and raised by the God of night. True Father, who is the true parent, was also embraced and raised by the God of night. And true parent is the owner of peace and the owner of lineage. And the true parent liberated and gave complete freedom to the God of night, the God of day, the King of kings, Hananim. True Father, the true parent, is the substantial true love. In other words, he's the Word become flesh, in other words, as the true parent. Jesus wanted more than anything else to have a wife. And so Father says that Jesus 3 times went to Mary to arrange a marriage for him. And when she finally did not, then that is when he left his home and went out and gathered the 12 disciples who were his spiritual children, because of because of Mary's refusal to arrange a marriage. He could not have physical children, and so he went out and gathered these 12 spiritual children. I think we'll talk more about Jesus later on, and perhaps also about Mary. But Jesus had a difficult time, and there are reasons for that. The reasons why that, some of the conditions that were set, the negative conditions that were set by Moses. Anyway, we'll be getting into that later on. Okay. So how did the universe come to exist? Was it creation
Tim?
or? Yes, Carrie.
I'm sorry, you just brought up such an important point. I just
Okay.
have to ask. So I've never heard it said so clearly that it sounds like, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that kind of like it was because of Mary's refusal to assist Jesus in finding a bride, then that's why he left. That's why he left the home of Joseph and Mary and then went his own way, so to speak.
Yes.
So Father has said that?
Yes.
I see. Thank you.
Yes. You know, in the, I think I've talked about this before, but one of the anniversary dinners of the Washington Times, where probably about 1,000 politicians and other people, all the bigwigs in Washington, D.C., were gathered by the Washington Times in this hotel ballroom. And Father spoke about Jesus, and he spoke about Mary, he spoke about God to all these politicians, and everyone was and he spoke a long time. And at the end of the speech, no one was left in the ballroom except for us staff. I mean, literally, I was there. No one was left in the ballroom except for us staff. Yeah. A couple hours, you know. But he offended everybody. You know, he offended the Jews by speaking about Jesus. He offended the Catholics by speaking about Mary in a way that the Catholics had never heard before. And of course, Protestants as well were offended by a lot of what he said. So, but you know, he was there. I think I've said before, the chairman of the Washington Times, you know, Dongmun-ju, who was a faithful at that time follower of Father, prepared a different speech, a completely different speech. And he said, "Please, Father, don't give that speech. Everyone's going to be offended if you give that speech. I've prepared a different speech for you. Why don't you give this one?" Right up to the moment that Father took the lectern, Ju Dongmun was trying to get Father to switch out his manuscript, but he didn't. He didn't, you know, because he comes as to give a message, and he only has a limited time in his physical body, and he needs to say what needs to be said, and these things about Mary. You know, yes, they're probably going to offend most Catholics. It's going to be very different from what they've been taught, you know. But he sees Mary in a very, very different light than she is traditionally seen. But I think in what was it, the Parents' Day of last year, I think, wasn't it, where we had that Hundog material that said that when the Father says that when the Messiah comes to earth, the first thing he wants to do is to find a woman with whom he can be, so that, because without a woman he cannot become the true parent. It's only after, yes, God gave Father the title of true parent, but that was only after he found a woman, was educating and training her up to a certain level. That God was able to give him that title. So Jesus never became true parent because he did not have a wife, and it was, but you know, he cannot just go out and grab any girl off the street. It has to be something that is arranged by his mother. And Father's marriage to Mrs. Che was arranged by his mother, and yes, she failed, but once that position is established, then another woman can come in to continue the work of that position. And also, there was a woman who fulfilled also the function of father's mother as well. That would be Mrs. Wonpokche, if you know who she is. Yes. So one of the things that Father often talked about was the tragedy of Jesus' life. Yeah. And of course let's not even get into John the Baptist. Again, another person that is seen in a very positive light in traditional Christianity, but also Father saw in a very different light. All right, shall we go forward? Yes. How did the universe come to exist? Was it creation or evolution? Anyone want to take a guess? It was creation. Why creation? All existences come into being and are born from love. This is why all beings exist in pairs. In science, and this is important, input is always greater than the output, because in the process you lose energy, right? So output is never equal to input. It's always less than the input. The output is always less than the input. This is why we don't have a machine that can continue to move eternally without additional energy being applied to it. A car cannot run without additional gasoline always being put into it, additional energy. We don't have a car that once you start it will continue to move, the engine will continue to go around forever, because always it's losing energy. But with love, the output is always greater than the input. And also, why creation? Number 2, because seeds are different. A sparrow will never become a finch. And the king talks about microevolution as opposed to macroevolution. And Christians are fine. We are fine with microevolution, because in microevolution, yes, the shape of the beaks can change from generation to generation in order to adapt to the environment. But we do not have a jump from one species to another. A seed is absolutely unique and does not change for eternity. New developments always require an investment of creative force, a new idea and technology. Without such an investment, there is no development. So development requires investment, and this investment comes from God. So when A becomes A prime, that is development. Evolution, when A becomes B, that is evolution. For example, an ape becoming a human being. So Father talked, very much against evolution, because obviously evolution was an attempt to, Darwin was trying to explain how all these beings could exist without a God. He wanted to, they were desperate to show that God did not exist, that you don't need a God for all these things to exist. Yeah. So it starts from that point. So what comes first, the existence or the reason for the existence? The reason comes first. Why? Because motivation and purpose come first. So in other words, the Shimjung has purpose, and the Shimjung, with the outflowing of Shimjung, the love, and then that love then becomes the basis for creation. So through creation, not through evolution. This puts an end to the controversy over creation versus evolution, and declaration of the end of the theory of evolution here. But also, let's talk about pantheism and emanationism, such as in the Greek philosopher. In pantheism, the creation has no motivation or purpose. But this creation does have a purpose, and the purpose is to return joy to God in response to His love. Or Big Bang theory, spontaneous generation. Some scientists established the theory of the Big Bang in relation to the formation of the universe, and have worked hard to rationalize that theory. These scientists assert that the universe was formed approximately 20 billion years ago, with an extremely small particle with a diameter of 10 centimeters responded to an unlimited force triggering the Big Bang, and that the universe was formed from an expansion caused by the Big Bang. In addition, they say that the same force that formed the universe by acting on that extremely small particle to cause the Big Bang is what maintains the universe, and that the expansionary action that was caused is continuing even today, 20 billion years later. However, no scientists are able to predict how long the expansion of the universe will continue. If the expansion continues forever, it means that some unlimited force acted upon that 10 centimeter sized particle, and that this itself becomes a field transcending science. According to the Big Bang Theory, itself becomes contradictory in as much as it ends up denying the science itself. A theory of the generation of the universe, unlike the theory of a Shimjung motivation behind the universe, there are other theories about the generation of the universe that assert that the universe formed from some source or origin automatically without any purpose or motivation. In the East, or the East Asia, the yin-yang, a great ultimate theory of I Ching, the natural beings theories of Confucianism. In the West, Plotinus's emanation, Hegel's self-development of absolute spirit theory. In India, the Hindu theory of generation of all things of Brahman, the Big Bang theory of modern science. However, these theories on the formation of the universe establish a perspective that says human sin also developed automatically by itself. Thus, we cannot resolve sin on a fundamental level on the basis of these theories. And I mentioned some, actually many mainline Protestant Christians have sort of adopted this kind of view of the universe, where, as I said, they don't see us as having gone up, down, and then like that, which is the way that we Father expresses human history, but rather human beings start at the bottom, okay, immature, but then they are going up gradually. And this distance between God's ideal and the reality or today's humanity is, in their mind, sin. And I've had it described to me this way by a Protestant minister. But if you do that, then there's no way of resolving human sin. And besides, how can you say after the Holocaust of World War II that human beings are just going up like that? How can you say that, after the genocides in Rwanda or in around the world, genocides occur again and again and again. China under Mao Zedong and Stalin, in Ukraine and other places. So human beings fundamentally are not changing, are they? They can only change when they change their blood lineage. They cut off that original sin, cut off their lineage from Satan. Until that happens, people are capable of terrible, terrible, terrible things. Terrible things. And will continue to be so unless we change the blood lineage and cut off that original sin from Satan. That's not the only sin. You're only cutting off the root of the tree. You're not killing the tree itself. It takes time for the tree itself to die. But at least you are making an important change in that blood lineage. And that is why the holy blessing is so important. The holy wine and the blessing and the 40-day separation and the 3-day ceremony, the indemnity stick, that get that blood lineage changed from God's lineage from Satan's lineage to God's lineage. So it's really sad to see, of course, mainland Protestant Christians have adopted so much, even they've adopted, of course, the LGBTQ nonsense and the gender ideology and even critical race theory and all this kind of things. Obviously, they are no longer the salt of the earth, no longer the light on the hill. And so we see them dividing, like right now the United Methodist Church is in the process of dividing between those who want to accept the gender ideology and those who don't. Those who say that gay marriages should be performed, and those say that's not possible. The whole denomination right now, one of the largest denominations in the world, is going through a division right now on this very point. When we adopt a universe creation theory, we need to have a clear understanding of God, who created human beings and the universe, and the purpose for which human beings and the universe were created. If we do not clearly understand God and the purpose of creation, it is impossible to bring a fundamental resolution to sin. Moreover, if we cannot resolve the fundamental root of sin, it will be impossible to realize Cheonyukuk. In other words, if we do not change that lineage, that blood lineage, from Satan's lineage to God's lineage, we're not going to get Cheonyukuk, because Cheonyukuk is the sinless world of peace and unity desired by God and humankind. And I think I mentioned before, I hope Jeff Bezos and what's his name, the other guy, wait. Don't be so eager to go into space while you still got your original sin, all right? Let's not go creating colonies of sinful people on Mars. It's not a good idea, right? Let's debug ourselves of this original sin first, and then we can scale up into the universe. But let's wait a while, just a little while. We're almost there. Let's just wait a little while longer, right? Jeff Bezos also needs to resolve his original sin and change his lineage, especially, he recently went through a divorce, right? We want a different kind of human being going out into space. Branson, that's the other one. Yeah. Was it Branson? Richard Branson, yes. Richard Branson is the other one. They all want to go out into space. Yeah. And of course, China is creating colonies on the moon, and communism. Oh yeah, let's not send that into the universe, please. Yikes! God will be unhappy about that. Yeah. Let's have completed human beings and their families going out into the universe. Creation of the universe from the viewpoint of the 원리본체론, that's the original substance of divine principle. The unification principle makes it possible to offer reasonable and logical explanation because God's creation of the universe started from a single point. The view of 원리본체론 is that God first created a single particle from energy and then step by step created atoms, then from atoms created particles. I think he means molecules, right? Yeah. From atoms created molecules. I thought I corrected that. Can we correct that, please? I'm pretty sure I looked into the Korean and found that was incorrect. So created atoms, and from atoms created molecules. Okay. Following this, after creating various minerals, which are formed from those molecules, God created organic matter, vegetation, animals in that order. Then finally created human beings as the substantial embodiment of minerals, plants, and animals. God created human beings in his image as his children. The universe is the stage for the activities of human beings. For this reason, human beings are to flourish and prosper in the universe. In this sense, the universe is the homeland of humanity, and the cosmos, spirit world, and universe together is the original human home country of humankind. Accordingly, the view of 원리본체론 is that the universe will continuously expand, never collapse back on itself, which is what the Big Bang theory says, that at some point that energy that created the Big Bang is going to come to its limit, and then everything is going to collapse in on itself. But Father's teaching is that no, it's going to continue to expand forever. And that the energy of the universe did not simply appear instantly, rather the energy of the universe is cumulative, having been added step by step in each stage of creation over a long-term creation process. So a very different view of creation from what is popular among scientists today. But scientists are still going through the process of recovering all the knowledge that was lost as a result of the fall. And so I think there was a point where they said, okay, now it's Big Bang. Before that, it was something else, and I'm sure there will be another stage, another thing that will come along later on. Maybe this thing's not going to collapse like we thought it was, or something like that. Yeah. So we'll see. Eventually, in a few billion years, we can say, "We told you so." Yeah. As the harmonious unified body of the dual characteristics of original Sengsang and original Hyeongsang, God is the unique being of oneness who exists as the harmonized subject being. So when children learn about the Big Bang theory in a school today, just keep in mind this. I mean, when I remember what I was taught back in chemistry in high school, 50 years ago, it's pretty different today. It's pretty different. My teachers back then taught me stuff that would probably get you an F on a test today about the atom and the. I can't even remember if we had the electron cloud back then. It was just you get your proton, you get your nucleus, and then you get little circles around it, right? Little circles, and I think in the first circle you had 2 electrons. I can't remember, and then you had another number in the second circle and another number in the third circle. Well, that turns out to be nonsense. Yeah, so a lot of stuff that's being taught in school today is going to also, 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now is going to turn out, well, that wasn't true at all. But you still have to learn it because that's what you need to learn in order to pass the test. But don't take it too seriously. Okay? Aracea? Don't take it too seriously. Take it with a grain of salt. Same with this nonsense about evolution, which is a religion, by the way. It's a faith. That's why it's only a theory. So, as the harmonious unified body of the dual characteristics of original Seongsang and original Hyeongsang, God is the unique being of oneness who exists as the harmonized subject being. The scientists of any given day like to believe that they have the truth. This is it. And it's not going to develop beyond this. But it always does. Original Seongsang, which is mind-type energy, and original Hyeongsang, which is energy-type mind, exist as the original substance of energy and as the pre-energy in the world of cause. And the pre-energy is mind, and we can also say that mind itself is energy. Research into matter and material is the job of scientists, but more modern science has revealed the source of matter and material is energy. In this aspect, scientists do agree. Einstein said everything is vibration. And so the source of matter and material is energy. And actually, not just the source, but if you look down into it, if you look at the molecules, if you look at the atoms, if you look at the particles, then look at the particles inside the particles, it turns out this is just all clumps of energy. However, before matter came into existence, God's Hyeongsang itself existed. And moreover, God's Hyeongsang included energy, and the mind energy of the Seongsang was inherent within energy of God's Hyeongsang. Accordingly, the pre-energy of the world of cause is mind, and mind is itself energy, and the unique being of oneness is thus the original substance of energy. God is the original substance of energy. Oh my, did we go? Maybe I need to start setting alarms here. Okay, let's take a break now.